What's up, Taiwan? Good morning. I'm Ethan Liu with 10 minutes of news from here in Taiwan and around the world. 10 Taiwanese nationals are safely back home after fleeing Ukraine. They left the war-torn country after Russia invaded last week. The touchdown at Taoyuan International Airport on Thursday evening marked an end to a harrowing journey. While the travelers are safe and sound, they'll still need to undergo 14 days of quarantine before they can see their families. Much is being made of Russia's assault on Ukraine and the parallels with Taiwan's situation. China claims Taiwan as its territory and has not ruled out the use of force to take it. TaiwanPlus's Inca vet spoke with J. Michael Cole, a senior non-resident fellow at the Washington-based Global Taiwan Institute, to discuss the crisis in Ukraine and how it relates to Taiwan.
First of all, from a purely military perspective, Ukrainian forces only have to cross land borders to launch their attacks against Ukraine, whereas in the Taiwan context, Taiwan being an island is surrounded by water. So that definitely complicates any attempt by the Chinese military to take Taiwan by force. Another important element, I would say, is the fact that Ukraine has a sizable number of ethnic Russians, especially in parts of Ukraine that border Russia, who are to a certain extent amenable to Russia's intentions in Ukraine, who may have grievances against the Ukrainian government and somehow believe that they would have a better future if they were ruled by Russia. Now, Taiwan does not have that kind of sizable ethnic minority that would to the same extent, collaborate with invaders. We certainly have a number of individuals and small organizations in Taiwan that are pro-unification, but nowhere near the extent that we've seen in Ukraine.
And you've also talked about the significance of Taiwan, sort of geopolitically, economically.
In terms of certainly in recent years as well, the importance of Taiwan to the global supply chain, its leadership in semiconductor industry that has worldwide implications, but also the geographical location of Taiwan in an extremely important sea transit in East Asia, which means that any military activity in the Taiwan Strait and the kind of denial of access that the Chinese military would have to impose would have near catastrophic repercussions for global trade, which means that not to downplay the significance of Ukraine for European security, but from a purely global perspective, I would argue that contingency in the Taiwan Strait would have much greater implications, would be all the more destabilizing to the global economy. And I think countries like Taiwan, United States, and their like-minded allies could do more as well to make people worldwide realize that an attack on Taiwan would have real hard consequences for their livelihoods.
Still, what lessons, if any, should Taiwan be taking from Ukraine?
One big lesson, certainly, and I've noticed that quite a few people in Taiwan have taken note of that, is the fact that even in the face of extraordinary odds, if there is a whole of society response to this type of invasion, if people are playing different roles in defending their territory, defending their way of life, their democracy, they can make the lives of invading forces a lot more difficult. I think this serves as a very potent example for the Taiwanese, and that it is also their responsibility and that of the government to make sure that everybody plays a role in contributing to deterrence against these type of attacks, but also if indeed an attack occurs, to know what to do and to have access to different means and tools to make the lives of invading forces a lot more difficult. This is a great example of unity, of resistance, and I sure hope that the Taiwanese are inspired by what we're seeing in Ukraine right now.
Moving on to Hong Kong now, more and more media workers and news outlets have found themselves caught in the crosshairs of the Hong Kong security law that was imposed by Beijing nearly 2 years ago. As the Hong Kong government has cracked down on pro-democracy media, major news sources have disappeared along with the years of reporting. But some are fighting to preserve this material before it's too late. Ryan Ho-Kilpatrick has the story.
Search for the biggest opposition newspapers and websites in Hong Kong, and this is what you'll find. Since the imposition of the national security law in 2020, the city's three biggest pro-democracy news outlets, Apple Daily, Stand News, and Citizen, have all been shuttered. And when they go down, they take everything with them to try to protect their employees and contributors from the government's crackdown. Overnight, years or even decades of reporting are lost forever. Or at least they would be, if not for volunteer archivists and groups like the 852 Spirit that rush to back it all up. For their safety and their families, they asked not to be identified on screen.
Programs that Hong Kong journalists dedicated their passion and effort in investigative journalism. We can only imagine how much sleep the staff had lost while preparing programs like that for the public. So preserving their work is preserving the truth, which is what we do. We cannot simply make those programs once they're gone.
These volunteers are members of the Hong Kong diaspora scattered around the globe, and they feel that protecting and passing on their hometown's collective memory is a service they're uniquely placed to make.
It's safe for us to hold these things, and they're not going to get erased or removed like, say, what's happening in the bookstores or the public libraries in Hong Kong. We can hold these things in trust. Generations of people have lost their memories and events and evidence.
The absence of evidence in China for the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre provides a cautionary tale in how governments with absolute control over the media and education can erase or rewrite historical events.
I mean, you only have to look at 89 to see how the events were suppressed there and the activists were told that it never happened. Yes, we saw this. We remember it. We've saved it. We believe your stories. We've seen your stories.
But this isn't just about helping future generations. The government and police are aggressively prosecuting activists who took part in pro-democracy protests. And in some cases, live-streamed footage has proven that police testimony was false.
Live-streamed videos have become crucial evidence in court to prove that the accused isn't guilty or present at the scene of the crime. It's hard to prove someone's innocence unless there is convincing evidence to present to the judge. Whereas news articles, interviews, or other materials, they are priceless because those are someone else's work of which they gave the best effort in documenting the city's history.
The anti-government protests of 2019 and 2020 inspired a deluge of art, writing, music, and film. But in Hong Kong itself, now under the wide-ranging national security law, little of it can be safely shared. The award-winning documentary Revolution of Our Times is now playing to sold-out audiences worldwide, but is banned in the city it documents. Another item on a growing list of examples of how authorities are seeking to limit not only what Hong Kongers are allowed to report on and talk about, but even what they are allowed to remember. But the 852 Spirit and others are pushing back. They say they're in the early stages of creating an online database where anyone can access the materials they save. As Hong Kongers increasingly lose control over how their home is run in the present and what course it takes in the future, they are determined to prove they will not have their past, their memories, taken away from them. Ryan Ho-Kilpatrick for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's Baseball League could be adding a new team to its roster. The Chinese Professional Baseball League announced the collaboration with Taiwan Steel Group to establish a sixth baseball team, which could start playing in 2024. The team would be named the Taiwan Steel Brave Eagles with a home in Kaohsiung's Chengqing Lake Stadium in southern Taiwan. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. I'm Ethan Liu. Finally today, we leave you with pictures of a massive puppet porcupine built as the world's largest that was unveiled in Los Angeles. Remember to download the TaiwanPlus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Take care, and I'll see you next time.